If you've ever knocked a leaf off one of your plants by accident and just tossed it, this video is going to bother you a little. Because depending on which plant that leaf came from, you may have thrown away a brand new plant without realizing it. Not a metaphor, not an exaggeration. A literal, fully rooted, living plant that would have grown from that one leaf with almost no help from you. Today we're covering 20 plants where that's not just possible, it's actually how they're designed to work. Here's the thing, you don't need a greenhouse, special soil, or years of experience for any of this. Most of these plants sit on windowsills in ordinary apartments across the country, and people have no idea what they're capable of. But there's a question worth asking before we get into the list. Why can some leaves do this, while others just rot the moment they hit soil? Because the answer to that question changes how you approach every single plant on this list. By the end of this video, you'll know all 20 plants, the method that actually works for each one, and the one mistake that kills most cuttings before they ever get started. This isn't complicated, but there are a few details most guides leave out, and those details are the difference between a cutting that roots and one that rots. If you want more content like this without hunting for it every time, subscribing to ExoticaPlants means it's already waiting for you. Now let's get into it. Plant 1. Jade plant. The jade plant is one of the most forgiving plants on this list. Drop a leaf by accident, and it will often start rooting on its own before you even notice it. Its thick, waxy leaves store both water and nutrients, giving the cutting everything it needs to survive while new roots develop underneath. All you need is a clean twist at the base to detach the leaf fully, a dry, callous period of 24 hours, and a shallow tray of well-draining soil. Place it in bright, indirect light and leave it alone. The jade plant does the rest. It's not dramatic, it's not fast, but it is consistent, and consistency is what makes it the perfect first propagation for anyone who needs a confidence-building win. Plant 2. Echeveria. Echeveria is the plant that turned leaf propagation into a trend. Its rosette shape, pastel colors, and satisfying symmetry made it a favorite long before most people understood why it propagated so easily. The science is straightforward. Each leaf contains a high concentration of stored energy and auxin, the hormone that signals plant tissue to generate roots. When you remove a leaf cleanly from the base, auxin concentrates at the wound site and root initiation begins. Within 1 to 3 weeks, a tiny rosette pushes up from the base of the leaf. The original leaf will eventually shrivel as it transfers all its energy into the new plant. What looks like the leaf dying is actually it doing its final and most important job. Plant 3, Sedum sedum, is a genus with over 400 species, and nearly all of them propagate freely from leaf cuttings. What makes sedum particularly useful for beginners is its tolerance for neglect. Leaves that fall in outdoor gardens often root without any human involvement at all. This is a plant that evolved in rocky, nutrient-poor environments where the ability to regenerate from a single piece was a survival advantage. Indoors, that same resilience works in your favor. Place a sedum leaf on top of dry, succulent mix, mist lightly every few days, and keep it near a window. It will root with almost no help from you. And here's something most growers don't expect. Sedum leaves that are slightly stressed before propagation often root faster than perfectly healthy ones. Plant 4. Kalanchoe. Kalanchoe takes leaf propagation to a level that genuinely surprises most people the first time they see it. While most plants on this list grow new roots from the base of a detached leaf, certain Kalanchoe species, particularly Kalanchoe digramontiana, produce fully formed plantlets directly along the edges of their leaves while still attached to the mother plant. These plantlets drop to the soil and root on their own. Standard Kalanchoe varieties also propagate well from leaf cuttings using the traditional method: clean removal, callus period, indirect light, minimal water. The biology is the same across all varieties: stored energy, auxin concentration, and totipotent cells doing exactly what they were designed to do. Plant 5. Haworthia is slower than most succulents on this list, but what it lacks in speed it makes up for in reliability. Its stiff, pointed leaves contain dense internal tissue packed with water-storing cells, and that stored moisture keeps the cutting alive during the weeks it takes for roots to develop. The key with Haworthia is patience and placement. It does not want direct sunlight. In fact, direct sun will dehydrate the cutting before roots have a chance to form. Bright, indirect light and a very light misting schedule is all it needs. When roots finally appear, they tend to be thick and well developed, which means the new plant establishes itself faster once moved to its own pot. Plant 6. Snake plant. The snake plant tolerates low light, irregular watering, and neglect better than almost any other houseplant, which is exactly why it's on nearly every beginner plant list. What many growers don't realize is that it also propagates from leaf cuttings with almost no effort. Cut a healthy leaf into sections of 3 to 4 inches, let the cut ends dry for a full day, then place them upright in water or well-draining soil. Roots appear within 2 to 3 weeks. There's one detail worth knowing though. If you propagate a variegated snake plant from a leaf cutting, the new plant will lose its variegation entirely. To keep the pattern, the plant must be divided at the root. Most growers discover this after the fact. Now you know before. Plant 7. African violet. African violets are one of the most well-documented leaf propagation plants in home gardening. The process is almost theatrical. Place a single leaf with its petiole into soil or water, and within weeks a cluster of tiny new plants emerges at the base. The petiole, the small stem connecting leaf to plant, contains cells that respond strongly to warmth and moisture by initiating root and shoot development. African violets prefer warm temperatures, high humidity, and indirect light during propagation. One detail that meaningfully improves success: insert the petiole at a 45-degree angle rather than straight down. This positions the base of the leaf closer to the soil surface, exactly where new plantlets need to push through. Plant 8. Begonia is one of the most versatile propagators on this entire list. Depending on the variety, you can propagate it from a whole leaf, a leaf section, or even a leaf with just a single vein intact. Rex begonias are famous for a method called leaf vein cutting, where you slice through the main veins on the underside of a leaf, lay it flat on damp soil, and watch new plants emerge directly from each cut. It sounds extreme, but the biology supports it completely. Begonia leaves are rich in meristematic tissue, actively dividing cells that can reorganize into any plant structure when triggered by the right conditions. Warmth, humidity, and consistent moisture are the 3 factors that determine how fast this happens. Plant 9. Peperomia. Peperomia is a genus of over 1,000 species, and most of them root easily from leaf cuttings. What makes it particularly interesting is that it works through 2 different methods depending on the variety. Thick-leaved varieties like Peperomia obtusifolia can be propagated using just the leaf blade, no petiole needed. Thinner-leaved varieties propagate better when the petiole is included. In both cases, the cutting goes into well-draining mix, never waterlogged soil, and sits in warm, bright, indirect light. Roots typically appear within 3 to 4 weeks. Peperomia is also drought-tolerant during propagation, which means inconsistent watering is less likely to ruin the cutting than it would with more sensitive plants. Plant 10. Christmas cactus. Christmas cactus is technically not a cactus. It's a tropical plant native to the rainforests of Brazil, which explains why it behaves so differently from desert succulents. Its flat, segmented stems are actually modified leaves, and each segment is capable of rooting and becoming a new plant. Twist off a segment of 2 to 3 sections, let it dry for 24 hours, then place the base in lightly moist soil. Keep it in a warm spot with indirect light, and resist the urge to water frequently. The cutting will appear to do nothing for the first 2 weeks. That's completely normal. Root development happens underground before any visible growth appears above the surface. Patience here is the entire strategy. Plant 11. Sansevieria moonshine. Sansevieria moonshine is a premium variety known for its wide, silver-green leaves and architectural appearance, and it's one of the more sought-after plants among collectors, which makes its propagation value significant. Like standard snake plants, moonshine propagates from leaf sections placed in water or well-draining soil. The process is slow, sometimes 4 to 6 weeks before roots appear, but the resulting plant retails for significantly more than most common houseplants. The same variegation warning applies here. Leaf cuttings produce green plants, not silver ones. Division is the only method that preserves the moonshine coloring. For volume propagation, though, leaf cuttings remain the most practical option. Plant 12, Gasteria. Gasteria is one of the most underrated plants in the succulent world. It looks similar to aloe but grows slower, tolerates lower light, and propagates more reliably from leaf cuttings than almost any other succulent on this list. Its thick, tongue-shaped leaves store significant moisture, sustaining the cutting through the entire root development phase without any input from you. Remove a leaf cleanly from the base, allow it to callus for 1 to 2 days, then place it on dry succulent mix. Roots appear within 3 to 5 weeks. Gasteria is also one of the few succulents that actively prefers lower light, making it ideal for rooms that don't receive strong natural light. For apartment growers, this is the plant that solves the low-light propagation problem entirely. Plant 13, Aloe vera. Aloe vera is honestly one of the trickier plants on this list when it comes to leaf propagation, and it's worth being upfront about that. Unlike most succulents where leaf cuttings root reliably, aloe has a genuinely lower success rate. The reason is aloin, a bitter compound the plant produces as a natural defense that can interfere with root development at the cut site. Extending the callus period to 48 to 72 hours helps by allowing the wound to seal more completely before contact with soil, and this does improve results meaningfully. But you'll still lose some cuttings even with the right technique. Aloe propagates most reliably through offsets, the small pups that grow around the base of the mother plant. Leaf cuttings are worth attempting. Just go in with realistic expectations and start several at once. Plant 14, Crassula ovata variegated. The variegated form of Crassula ovata, the variegated jade plant, produces leaves with creamy white margins alongside deep green centers, making it one of the more visually striking collector varieties. It propagates from leaf cuttings using the same method as standard jade, but with one important difference: variegation is not always preserved in every new plant. Some cuttings produce fully green plants, while others carry the pattern. This genetic variation makes each propagation attempt slightly unpredictable, which is part of what makes this plant interesting to collectors. Propagate multiple leaves at once and select the most strongly variegated plantlets as they develop. The plants are slow, but the resulting specimens are worth significantly more than standard jade. Plant 15, Streptocarpus. Streptocarpus, also known as Cape Primrose, is a plant most casual growers overlook entirely, but serious propagators consider it one of the most rewarding on this list. Its long, textured leaves can be cut into horizontal sections of 2 to 3 inches each, and every section is capable of producing new plantlets along the cut edges. This method, called cross-section leaf propagation, means a single leaf can produce dozens of new plants. The key detail is orientation. Always keep track of which end of each section was closest to the plant base, and insert that end into the soil. Reversing the orientation prevents rooting entirely. High humidity and temperature consistency dramatically improve success rates. A simple plastic dome over the tray is enough. Plant 16, Hoya Hoya, is a trailing, wax-leafed plant with some of the most beautiful flower clusters in the houseplant world, and individual leaves can be propagated in water or soil. The most important factor for Hoya leaf propagation is the inclusion of a node, the small joint where the leaf connects to the stem. A leaf without a node will produce roots but will never generate new growth beyond that. It becomes a rooted leaf and nothing more. With a node included, the cutting has the biological information it needs to build an entirely new plant. Hoya roots best in water, where progress is visible, which makes it a satisfying propagation project for anyone who wants to watch results develop in real time before committing to soil. Plant 17, Louisia. Louisia is a compact alpine plant with brilliantly colored flowers and thick succulent-like leaves that store moisture efficiently. It propagates from leaf cuttings similarly to other succulents: clean removal, callus period, dry soil, indirect light. What makes Louisia stand out is its cold tolerance. While most plants on this list prefer warm temperatures during propagation, Louisia performs better in cooler conditions, between 50 and 65 degrees Fahrenheit. This makes it ideal for growers in cooler climates or those propagating during autumn and winter months when most other succulents slow down dramatically. Its compact size also means a single tray can hold dozens of cuttings simultaneously, making it efficient for anyone growing plants in volume. Plant 18, semper vivum, Latin for always alive, earned its name through exactly the kind of resilience that makes it exceptional for propagation. While it most commonly reproduces by producing offsets around the mother rosette, individual leaves removed cleanly from the base will also root under the right conditions. The process mirrors standard succulent propagation: dry callus, dry soil surface, bright indirect light, minimal watering. What makes sempervivum unusual is its tolerance for temperature extremes. It will root successfully in conditions that would kill most other plants on this list, including near-freezing temperatures. For outdoor or cold climate growers, sempervivum offers a year-round propagation option that very few houseplants can match. Plant 19, adramicius, is a small, slow-growing succulent with distinctively patterned leaves, often spotted, mottled, or club-shaped depending on the species. It's a collector's plant with a dedicated following, and its leaf propagation behavior is as reliable as any succulent on this list. What makes adramicius particularly interesting is how easily its leaves detach. Sometimes a single brush against the plant is enough to dislodge a leaf. This is actually a natural propagation mechanism. In its native South African habitat, leaves fall to rocky soil and root wherever they land. Indoors, that same trait works in your favor. Collected leaves placed on dry, succulent mix will root with minimal intervention. The plants are slow to mature, but their unusual appearance makes them highly desirable once established. Plant 20, trailing sedum varieties. Trailing sedum varieties, including Sedum morganianum, commonly called burro's tail, round out this list with one of the most visually striking propagation results you can achieve indoors. Each plump, teardrop-shaped leaf detaches easily and roots with remarkable speed compared to other succulents. The trailing habit of the mature plant means fallen leaves are a constant occurrence, so you're never short of propagation material. Place collected leaves on dry succulent mix in a shallow tray. Mist every 2 to 3 days and position in bright, indirect light. Within 2 weeks, roots emerge. Within 4 weeks, new rosettes begin forming at the base of each leaf. A single mature burro's tail plant can produce enough cuttings to fill an entire tray with new plants, which is exactly why it's become one of the most shared plants in the propagation community. Before I explain what's happening, let me say this. When most people see a leaf produce a new plant for the first time, they assume they got lucky. Like something unusual happened, but it's not luck. It's not unusual. It's a biological process that has been running inside these plants for millions of years, and once you understand the mechanism, you'll realize the only thing that ever stood between you and a successful propagation was a few small details you didn't know yet. Here's what's actually happening inside every leaf on this list. Every living plant cell contains the complete genetic blueprint of the entire plant. Not just the leaf, not just the roots, the whole organism. This is called totipotency, and it's one of the most remarkable properties in all of biology. A totipotent cell is one that hasn't yet committed to a permanent function. In a mature plant, most cells have already specialized. They've become leaf tissue, vascular tissue, root cells. But certain regions retain cells that haven't made that commitment yet. These are called meristematic cells, and they concentrate most heavily at the base of leaves, along leaf veins, and at nodal points where leaves meet stems. When you remove a leaf cleanly from its base and expose those cells to the right combination of moisture, warmth, and light, something precise begins. The plant's internal chemistry, specifically a hormone called auxin, accumulates at the wound site. Auxin is the primary driver of root initiation. It signals undifferentiated cells to begin dividing and reorganizing, first into callus tissue that seals the wound, then into root primordia, the earliest structural form of a root system, then into functional roots capable of absorbing water and nutrients from soil. Once roots are established, a second hormone, cytokinin, begins driving shoot development. A tiny growth point emerges at the base of the original leaf. That point becomes a rosette center, a new stem, a new shoot. The original leaf, having transferred all of its stored energy into the new plant, shrivels and detaches. What looks like the leaf dying is actually the final act of a process that has been running since the moment it separated from the mother plant. The reason this feels surprising is that we tend to think of leaves as passive, decorative, useful for photosynthesis, but ultimately dependent on the rest of the plant to survive. The reality is that in the right species, a leaf is a complete biological package. It carries the instructions, the fuel, and the cellular machinery to build a new organism. The cleaner the break at the base, meaning the more intact the meristematic tissue, the faster and more reliably this entire process runs. That single detail, the quality of the separation at the base, explains why some propagation attempts succeed immediately and others fail entirely. It was never about luck. Practical application. Here's how you can actually encourage this step by step for any plant on this list. Start by selecting only healthy, firm leaves. Avoid anything yellowing, spotted, or soft at the base. The leaf needs enough stored energy to sustain root development over several weeks, and a compromised leaf simply doesn't have the reserves to complete the process. Remove the leaf with a clean twist rather than a cut. Grip the leaf close to the base and twist gently until it separates. The goal is to keep the base of the leaf, where the meristematic cells are concentrated, completely intact. A partial tear at the base is the single most common reason leaf propagation fails. If the base is torn, root development is significantly delayed or doesn't happen at all. Allow the detached leaf to callus for 24 to 48 hours in open air before placing it in soil or water. This drying period allows the wound to seal, which prevents rot when the cutting comes into contact with moisture. Skip this step, and the base will often rot before roots have a chance to develop. Now here's the part that actually makes this work. Place the calloused leaf on top of, not buried in, dry or barely moist, well-draining soil. Burying the leaf creates conditions around the base that interfere with root development. The leaf should sit on the surface with the base making light contact with the soil. For plants that propagate through petioles, insert the petiole at a 45-degree angle to a depth of about ½ inch. One thing worth knowing: if you follow these steps and the leaf still rots, it's almost always one of two things. The base was partially torn during removal, or moisture reached the cutting before the callus had fully formed. Neither means you failed at propagation. It means that specific cutting didn't have what it needed. Start 5 or 6 cuttings at a time rather than one, and your overall success rate becomes much more consistent. Most experienced growers do exactly this, not because they expect failure, but because they know volume is the most reliable strategy. Position your tray in bright, indirect light. Direct sunlight dehydrates the cutting faster than roots can develop to compensate. Water with extreme restraint. A light. Misting every 2 to 3 days is sufficient for most succulents. Tropical varieties prefer slightly more consistent moisture, but should never sit in waterlogged soil. When in doubt, water less. A dry cutting recovers. A rotting one does not. Expect visible roots in 1 to 3 weeks for most succulents and 2 to 5 weeks for tropical varieties. New growth at the base of the leaf confirms successful propagation. At that point, begin a very light watering routine and allow the new plant to establish before transplanting to its own pot. Which plant on this list do you already own? And are you going to try propagating it this week? Drop the name in the comments. And if you've tried before and it didn't work, say that too, because that's actually more useful for everyone watching than a success story. Subscribe to ExoticaPlants, where we go beyond growing and start understanding. The next video picks up right where this one leaves off.